The International Association for Near-Death Studies presents NDE Radio, a weekly exploration of near-death experiences and similar encounters with the other side. Now, here's your host, Lee Witting.
Welcome to NDE Radio, brought to you by IANS, the International Association for Near-Death Studies. I'm your host, Lee Witting. Today's show is part 3 of a 3-part interview with Dr. Eben Alexander and his co-partner and research partner, Karen Newell. We have been talking about an amazing variety of things, and if you haven't heard the previous 2 shows, I would urge you to go back and go to our past shows button at NDE Radio and listen to them. But since you're here with us today, we will proceed. Now, this is on a totally different theme in some ways. It is has to do primarily with Karen's adventures into the sacred acoustics. How should I describe it? I think I'm going to let you guys describe what this is all about.
All right.
That sounds great, Lee. It's good to be back with you.
Yes, thank you so much. I think I can begin. Sacred acoustics creates recordings that have embedded in them binaural beats or brainwave entrainment. And these recordings help people to quiet the mind. For me, one of the first kind of benefits was that when I would sit to meditate, it was very challenging to get that little voice in the head to just quiet down. And I thought I just wasn't capable of doing it. And it was these types of sounds that helped me get into that quieter state of mind. But as this developed, I found that these types of recordings can also help us to get into what's known as a hypnagogic state. And that's that state between awake and asleep, when we're our physical body is extremely relaxed, but our mind is still aware. And so this allows our consciousness really to be set free. And I think this would be a good time for Eben to explain how that's related to his near-death experience.
Yes,
before I go further.
And what I would add to that is really the reason I got involved in binaural beat differential frequency brainwave entrainment in the first place. It was a year and a half, 2 years after my coma. I had read more than 150 books on consciousness, trying to get some deeper idea of what had happened in my EE and how to explain. And I came to realize that clearly, to have a deeper understanding of consciousness, I really had to do more than just kind of sit around like most human beings being conscious, but I had to explore it. I had to more actively go into a deep meditative state or centering prayer and explore what all is available within consciousness. And I had heard at that time of binaural beats, and just for your audience, if they're not familiar, it's a phenomenon that was discovered in mid-1800s by a Prussian physicist, putting slightly different frequency tones into the 2 ears would lead to some alterations of consciousness. This was more deeply explored in the 20th century by people who found it was important for out-of-body experiences and for remote viewing, things like that. The reason these tones, I think, are so powerful is they're processed in the lower brainstem, and pretty much every sound you've ever heard in your life, and that includes say, chants or anthems or hymns that might have facilitated deep transcendental states of conscious awareness. Those are all processed in the neocortex, up in circuits that arose in the last 1 to 5 million years ago in primates and human beings. Very different from sacred acoustics and differential frequency brainwave entrainment. Those sounds are processed in the lower brainstem in a circuit that arose more than 300 million years ago. And that, I think, is the important thing. Any general principle in evolutionary biology is if you want to get to the core of any kind of function, you want to fall back in evolution and anatomy. And that's exactly what we're doing in finding this circuit in the lower brainstem and interfering with it, and therefore freeing conscious awareness.
And the part that I really was hoping you would explain, Eben, is how this mimicked your near-death experience when your neocortex was taken offline. That proved to you that the experience couldn't have happened inside your brain. And these tones also help to kind of take the brain offline, not as completely as, Eben's coma experience, but enough so that we can sort of start to reach beyond the veil and start to really generate spiritual experiences more consciously instead of just waiting for them to happen.
Well, I think Karen makes a very, very good point. And that's what I was getting to, is the whole reason 2 years after coma that I started investigating consciousness through sacred acoustic style binaural beat and deep meditation, is because I wanted to return to my NDE. I wanted to explore that consciousness, develop my relationships with the denizens I had met in that realm, develop them more fully. And I can tell you, I meditate an hour a day with sacred acoustics, been doing that for a decade or better. And I've often found a very deep and profound reconnection with my NDE, not just recovering memories of it, but actually developing those relationships and that kind of knowing of that infinitely healing and loving source at the core of it all. That's something I've reestablished through meditation. Although important to point out, I have yet to fully duplicate that full-bore ultra reality that I experienced in the core realm and in the Gateway Valley through meditation. And it could be that I just need something that more profoundly resembles complete eradication of my neocortex, like I had my meningoencephalitis. Although I keep trying with the meditation, and I've derived tremendous benefit in reconnecting with my NDE. That's one of the reasons why Karen and I have taken sacred acoustics to the IONS meetings and shared it with other NDEers. But it's useful not just for recovering memories and developing one's relationship, but even for people who have never had an NDE. They can come to the same knowledge.
Now, the melody that you kept remembering to get back to the portal that you were slipping away from during your NDE, was that the same? Was it similar to the music that your sacred acoustics offers?
I can tell you that is a question that is incredibly common and one that I personally was incredibly interested in. And we have created all kinds of sounds and present them to Eben. Is this it? Is this what you heard? And we've never been able to really find what it really sounded like for him. And that includes that resonant sound in the core that he heard, that om sound. We have an om recording, and it comes kind of close to what Eben heard. But he has a beautiful way of explaining that om.
Well, yes, the om for me, that's what I called that deity when I came back to this world, because trying to put it all together in my mind in my early writings, it was clear that deity, that fundamental source of love and healing and of conscious awareness, that God force at the core of the universe, God was a puny little human word to me with a lot of baggage. And that's why I called that being Om. To me, Om was much richer. That's what I experienced there. It was kind of the resonance you might expect in a cavity of infinite dimensions and all of eternity, that Om sound. And I think...
regarding the melody, you've forgotten it, correct?
Well, the thing is that melody is... Those sounds are not something that can be put together in our material world in four-dimensional space-time. So I would say that sacred acoustics actually does one better than just trying to duplicate that sound. It actually enhances the ability of the user's brain and mind state to come much closer to that primordial mind and traversing the veil, so that you can actually experience those sounds through that kind of traversal, as opposed to try and mimic them and present them to your ears, because those sounds are far beyond anything that could ever be heard by ears. Just like everything in that realm is more like Plato's world of ideals. It's the ideal template on which the very kind of crude and partial presentations of various sounds and visions come to us in this world, in this material body.
Does it disconnect the brain, do you suppose, to let the mind come through? Is that the way it works?
What it does is it takes to be very specific, it takes the brain from a beta state of awareness. That's the state we're in when we're walking around, when we're talking, and that can be measured with an EEG. That's the electric signal that comes out of the brain. That can be measured as around 12 to 30 hertz. And so these brainwave entrainment recordings are created such that they entrain the brain to lower states of awareness. So Alpha comes below beta. That's the kind of focused, relaxed state. That's about 8 to 12 hertz. And then 4 to 7 hertz is theta. And that's the state that people are in where they're in deep meditation, when they're in states of creative inspiration. And below that is delta, 0 to 4 hertz. That's the coma space or the deep sleep space. And so it's right around 4 hertz is that hypnagogic magic number, where when we can feed those kind of signals, and remember, Eben said that there are two slightly different tones that you hear in the ear. So on the left side, you might be hearing 100 hertz, and on the right side, be hearing 104 hertz. It's that difference between them, that 4 hertz, that really allows your brain to become, I would say, more relaxed, in a more focused state, in a state where it really believes the body is falling asleep. And this brings up that many philosophies that I've heard from different spiritual teachers and others will tell us that every single night when we go to sleep, our spirit, our soul, whatever you want to call it, actually leaves the body and goes on and interacts in the spiritual realms, doing various things, and then comes back. And so when we're listening to these kinds of tones, we're kind of mimicking that sort of experience. It's kind of like a lucid dream, except and that's where you wake up within a dream and you realize you're dreaming, and in some cases can start to manage that dream space. But this is kind of from the other way around, where you're in an awake state and you're trying to get into sort of that lucid dreaming kind of state.
Yes. And the other thing I would point out about all that is that we're really just trying to liberate your conscious awareness. In our last segment, I talked about the scientific study of people under the influence of psychedelic drugs, like psilocybin, LSD, DMT, et cetera, and how those fMRIs and magnetoencephalography studies show that the brain goes dark. In our society, we're so materialistic, we're used to, where in the brain, what's happening in the brain? Well, what is happening and what we're describing with these conscious experiences is not happening in the physical universe of the brain at all. It's by getting the brain out of the way and getting more in touch with that primordial consciousness. That's the real origin of our consciousness. And that's where people need to make that big shift in their kind of thinking and understanding to get to what these kind of tones can be doing to the brain and mind. But they're essentially taking the brain out of the equation.
I'm sitting here with two of your albums, Golden Light and Lotus.
Ooh, nice ones. Good variety.
Which I picked up at the bookshop sale at an IONS conference a couple of years ago. And on the back of Lotus, it says, venture along the pulsing currents of the heart resolve of divine compassion. Experience the mantra of universal altruism, Om Mani Padme Hum, as it attunes and propels you to the cosmic field of pristine interconnectedness. Pretty powerful music if it can do that. I haven't experienced this with a headset on yet, since I just discovered that I'd bought these several years ago. Are there other albums, and are they directed toward different experiences based on how they're programmed?
Yes, they are. We have a number of different recordings. There's probably about 27 different titles. I'm just roughly guessing off the top of my head there. But the Lotus one, I just want to point out that Om Mani Padme Hum was actually a recording that was made in the Tatsang monastery, the Tatsang cave, or the Guru cave at the Tatsang monastery, and monks were in there chanting this Om Mani Padme Hum, and we were able to take that recording and work with it such that it was really embedded all the way throughout. It adds a whole other element to the binaural beats. But we've made other recordings that are meant for deep journeying. We have others that are used for becoming more aware of the heart. We have others that are designed for really just relaxing and reducing anxiety. We have something we call the Whole Mind Bundle that was used in a psychiatric practice, and they used the state trait anxiety inventory to measure levels of anxiety. And after just 2 weeks of listening, people had reduced their anxiety by 26%. And in the control group, those who just received therapy but didn't listen to the sounds, their anxiety decreased by only 7% during that same time period. And so the anxiety reduction is one beautiful benefit of these particular recordings. And this set includes one in delta, one in theta, and one in alpha. So you can listen to them and discern for yourself how your brain kind of reacts to these different frequencies that are being delivered. What I've learned is that the brainwave state that each of us has is so unique from one person to another that it can actually be used just like fingerprints to identify people. And so when we listen to these kind of brainwave entrainment recordings, it's no surprise that we're all going to respond slightly differently. So when people first start listening, they might just fall asleep, and others might lay there and think perfectly awake and think, what is why is something supposed to be happening? So some will have very profound experiences and others may take a little more time. But each of the recordings that we've created is unique, one from another. Unlike some of the other binaural beat producers who kind of use the same underlying frequencies, but then just create different verbal guidance or intentions to go with it. Ours are all blends of very unique. So we have one called Primordial Mind. We have one called Love Body. We have one called Heart Center. We have one called Light Body. Light Body is pretty fascinating because it incorporates gamma brain waves, and none of our other recordings do that. Gamma brain waves are above 30 hertz, and that's what you hear about when, the runner's high, or when monks, very practiced meditating monks are in their most extreme states of connection to the other side. These gamma waves come up. So Light Body includes all of the gamma waves. And Eben, do you have any favorites?
Well, what I would do is just recommend people go to sacredacoustics.com and just look, because I think she has some excellent training videos, an incredible library, a very informative website, a page devoted to, I want to do this, I want to do that, all the different reasons that people might want to meditate, from creativity to stress reduction, immune enhancement, encountering souls of departed loved ones, all the many, many, many different things that people do. And also there is an app, works on the iPhone. There's a version on the Android, but that is still to be more perfected. The iPhone version is very, very good. And I would just encourage people to check out her website. Now, I'll tell you some of my personal favorites, the ones I use very frequently. As I said, an hour or two a day is what I devote to Sacred Acoustics. I love Heart Center 2. I love Golden Light. I love Light Body, Love Body, Primordial Mind, Lunar Cycles, Event Horizon.
That's all of them.
Well, no, there are more. I'm being choosy.
Depends on your mood.
It depends on what you're trying to do, but these are all excellent for journeying. I know my older son used Whole Theta while he was studying for the medical board exams, and he's convinced that his fairly dramatic improvement in percentile ranking over 2 consecutive exams had to do with the fact that he used Sacred Acoustics Whole Theta while he was studying. He used it literally for hundreds of hours.
So in that case, he wasn't journeying. He was
not
using
journeying.
it
He was using it as background.
Yeah,
right.
to calm the mind.
And then there's also a beautiful background piece called Cosmic Womb that is excellent, excellent material for, say, a massage person, or just if you want some nice background music to give a soothing atmosphere in an office or something. Cosmic Womb is powerful.
It was actually designed by our audio engineer when his wife was pregnant, and he created this recording for her to listen to while she was in labor and giving birth. That's why we call it Cosmic Womb. But it can be listened to by anyone at any time. Just a beautiful, relaxing chime, really, and including a 6 hertz theta tone embedded. I
just wanted to also point out, Lee, that that pilot study that Karen mentioned by the Manhattan psychiatrist is published in the Journal of Nervous and Mental Diseases in February of 2020. Dr. Anna Yusum was the author, and it's a very profound treatment for anxiety and depressive symptoms, and especially in the COVID era. That's why this is also important. And We've also done the mental health care practitioner course, which is available through
InnerSanctumCenter.com.
A
course we created with Anna. But interestingly, in her psychiatric practice, she measured anxiety with the form, but her patients ended up telling her of all kinds of other benefits. There was indeed another med student who used the recordings to help study, and she helped with the Delta recording, helped her to get better sleep, which, we all could use.
A little better sleep.
And so there's lots and lots and lots of applications. It really just depends on the person's personal goals and where they're at with all of this.
It really reflects, Eben, when you had your NDE, you said you went and read dozens of books trying to learn more about the subject. And it really shows how limited in some ways our intellectual powers are in grokking this stuff, when you can listen to a CD, for instance, and suddenly be back close to where you were during the experience.
Well, that is absolutely true. And I think that's why it's such a gift. That's why I love how Karen and her business partner, Kevin Cossey, have put together this incredibly powerful program of kind of self-development through meditation, is the Sacred Acoustics sound files. And I think if nothing else, people will find them to bring tremendous peace and kind of comfort to their lives, no matter what the external circumstances are, and also a deep sense of meaning and purpose in their lives. I mean, these are very powerful.
But you bring up an excellent point, Lee, when you say that it's, the intellect of all of this. We can sit around and talk about it all we want, but when we actually have our own personal experience of it, that's when things really start to change. And that's precisely, as you know, what happens to near-death experiencers. They have these amazing experiences and they transform. Bruce Grayson says it's the most transformative event that you could possibly ever see in the psychiatric world. And so by waiting around for a near-death experience to have this kind of thing, and all of the not so beneficial things that come along with a near-death experience, like some kind of injury or illness, but we can actually generate these kinds of experiences. We can come to know ourselves, this binding force of love. And that's precisely what I was up to before I even met Eben. I was able to really at will cultivate these types of experiences, very often with using the sound recordings. But after a while, these sound recordings help you kind of recognize these sort of different states of consciousness, such that you can really start to generate them yourself using your intention, even without the music, as time goes by. So they can serve as training wheels in some sense, although some people never let them go. They want to, like Eben, he enjoys listening to them every day.
Karen, you, in part of your introduction, I don't know if I included this in part two when I introduced you, but you were intrigued by accounts of ancient mystery schools where initiates were led through a series of trials to learn the secrets of the universe. What part of their training do you suppose music played?
Well, music probably played a role, because we hear so much in ancient times of sacred structures that they measure now that have a common resonance from one to another. And that resonance is somewhere around, 110 hertz, which happens to be when a male voice goes into an Om chant. That's roughly what that is, around 110 hertz, depending on the particular voice. And so I do believe they use some form of chanting, potentially a form of substances, potentially a form of fasting or sensory deprivation, all of those kinds of things. And I believe from all of the reading that I've done on this, that they were really, in these mystery schools, they were trying to mimic what we have now come to know as a near-death experience. Because sometimes you would hear about these initiates, they would die, they wouldn't come back. And afterwards, they weren't allowed to tell anyone else what happened. And even though they've come to this great knowing, because when you tell other people, it's completely just not the same as having the experience firsthand. And so, yes, I was completely fascinated. I really wanted to have that experience so that I could understand the secrets of the universe just in one fell swoop. But it turns out that over time, you can generate these kinds of experiences and come to that knowledge just as I have. We tell a funny story. When I first met Eben, I knew he had had a near-death experience, but his book hadn't come out yet. And I had known others who had NDEs, and I knew that they normally learned, or very often learned, incredibly personal spiritual lessons on these journeys. And so I was curious, making conversation, and asked Eben, what was the big lesson that you learned? And he says, the brain doesn't create consciousness. And I was confused by that and said, why would anyone think that it does? Because I had already come to my own knowing, my own understanding from many, many personal experiences all put together, that was precisely the case, that we have eternal souls, that they continue on after the death of the physical body. But of course, Eben had come from that academic materialist background. So to him, this was an amazing revelation. And so that's kind of where our relationship began, is from kind of those two spectrums. And we've learned a lot from each other over the years.
Well, I wish more medical people, in my 15 years as a chaplain at a hospital here in Bangor, Maine, I was encountering doctors all the time who had no time to spend on talking about the other side of this, and they were dealing with death all the time. It's amazing to me that they couldn't take a little time to learn more about near-death experience and what it means, and what it means to a patient who's had one and wants to talk about it, and the doctors say, "Oh, that was the anesthesia, that was a hallucination," and put it down like that.
Well, luckily, I would say a lot of the medical profession is waking up to this. Slowly but surely. There's a beautiful book out by John C. Hagan III. It's called The Science of Near-Death Experiences. He edited it, but it's filled with physician testimony about their experience studying NDEs and some physicians who have had NDEs. And it comes out very, very strongly favoring the spiritual interpretation. I think that the attempts by medical science to explain these things away as a materialist explanation is rapidly diminishing as people realize that doesn't lead anywhere. It doesn't give us any explanation whatsoever for how these events are occurring. And you really need to have a far bigger kind of metaphysics and understanding of the nature of reality to start to interpret them. It's not because this is about the supernatural. It's just that they're about consciousness. Consciousness is absolutely part of the natural world. And this is just more carefully refining the nature of that natural world.
Yes. Well, we, I think, have exhausted our third half-hour show, just like that.
Wow. Well, that was fun.
This has been great. Tell our audience how they can find your websites, your books, and your recordings.
All right. Well, I can rattle them all off. You can reach Eben at ebenalexander.com, and you can learn more about Sacred Acoustics at sacredacoustics.com. And then we are also currently doing a webinar series because all our travel was canceled due to the pandemic, and we've been inviting colleagues that we would normally see at events, including some near-death experiencers and researchers. And you can find out about that at unitedinhopeandhealing.com. And one last website is innersanctumcenter.com, where Eben and I have created that spirituality and mental health course with Anna Yusum, and also a membership platform where people can connect and get to know us better.
Oh, that sounds interesting. How does that work? Give us a brief overview of that course.
Well, our membership platform, we have created a core course, kind of just our standard teachings that take people through, how to really generate that inner peace. And it includes 3 sample Sacred Acoustics recordings so people can try them out. And we also have monthly live Q&As where people can interact with us. They submit questions and we do a webinar each month where we address all of those questions, whatever they may be. No questions are off limits, so it gets pretty interesting in that setting.
Excellent. Well, I hope this show will provide you with many additional people on that website. Thank you so much, both of you, for 3 really great shows. I'm so appreciative, and I think our audience must be as well. If listeners would like to hear this show again or any of our past shows, just go to our website at nderadio.org and hit the past shows button. For information about IANDS, go to their website at iands.org. And be with us again next Monday, 11 a.m. Eastern, for more NDE Radio. This is your host, Lee Witting, saying thanks for listening.